Hey everyone, welcome to Firefly and Game Theory. APC's Saturday afternoon. I was going to call it Saturday night, but I guess we go into the evening, but we start at 4 o'clock. It is Gil and Manish in the booth today. It looks like we're opening up with a big one here right off the bat. Sonia's all in, and Mike Z all in. Looks like from the big blind +1. Would say it's a classic race, but Mike Z's way ahead.
How excited he must have been with the short stack, seeing a shove there and looking at pocket kings when he sees his cards.
Yeah, that's one of those where it's like you're looking for a place to double up, and the second best hand's a good one.
2 hearts there.
Oh, you're looking at a straight draw. Nope.
No.
Kings and sevens.
Kings are going to hold. We're just getting in, so I don't know what the stack size is, but looks like Sonia had a lot more chips, so she's still in the game and pretty comfortably in the game.
I would say it's interesting. Ted's got a decently sized stack, but nobody's super separated. Only John's sitting at 12K, 3 bigs, and it looks like he's going to give a quarter of it away in the big blind here. So he is definitely looking for his big blind special. Now this is one where this is tough, but I might actually like to see Vina use her image here and open the ace-3, especially sitting on what she got.
Looks like she
six bigs.
She heard you. She's going in for there. And I was at the table and MA was there and everyone's discussing she only plays the nuts. And you're right. Her table image is so tight. With her calling in, people would be scared. Oh, there's a shove there from John with just 12K though.
Let's see. This is a tough spot because I think John would have gone with his hand anyway. But if Vina had opened up, even for a min raise, using her table image is really powerful here. Now, I don't actually hate a fold because, and this is a place where I like seeing some stack preservation. If you are going to go the cautious route, it's a good fold there to keep your stack in a shovable range.
That's another 8,000 would have been a third of her stack, leaving her with just 16, which is not pressurizing chips then.
Yeah. So at a final table, if we're at 2 and 4 and she's sitting on 24, she can definitely use that against people.
There's a 9 there.
Some hearts.
9's an ace.
Ace 9. That was just unfortunate for David because I think he's calling with almost any 2 cards there once John shoves out of the small blind. And the fact that John had him dominated.
And if you look at the chip spread right now, just walking into commentary here, a lot of people in the 20s right there.
It was like Ted's the only one who's kind of separated from the pack. Red Rum's sitting there a comfortable second. That's one of those where if you have the chance, especially with Ted being 2 positions to his right, if it ever folds to Red Rum, I think he can put a lot of pressure on these other players. Get your chips in first.
Yeah, I've lately been playing a lot more with Red Rum, with him being regular at Firefly. He's a very, very solid player. I was on his table earlier today as well. Very strong player. I played a lot with Ted. He obviously is one of the more experienced APC players here.
Yeah. No, I think. All right, I was going to say, John, you just got to step on it here. Yes. People have shown weakness in this hand. It's crazy when you can look at it from a perspective of what percentage of your stack can you add, and you're sitting on basically 20. Are you sitting on basically 30K? And if you can get a limp and 2 limps and get everyone to fold, you're going to pick up 12, 16K without seeing a showdown.
I think another thing a lot of players have started doing that I'm observing now lately over the last month or so here is calculating more of big blinds instead of getting emotional about the chip stack by itself, right? He had all of 7 big blinds after this. A raise is not in order there. You put in 3 big blinds, you left with 4 big blinds. That's not going to help you post flop. So don't get too emotional with your chips. And I think he did
No,
a
that's
perfect move of shoving there.
yeah, because I mean, if you look at it from a big blind perspective, he added basically 50% more chips to his stack without even having to see a card. So I like that push. Sometimes it'd be harder, even if he didn't have ace jack there. Sometimes just making sure that your chip stack can hurt people, even if the second in chips limps in. Then don't give people a chance to outflop you or outplay you.
Right.
I think this is actually a little tough decision for Ted.
Graphic is showing Ted. I don't know what Veena has. Oh, she's on the big blind.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all
But
Ted.
Ted going with a
Ted does a 2.2 raise.
new school, newer school.
Newer school raise of 2.2 to 9,000.
Yeah, I still remember back in the day, if you min raised, people made fun of you, and now it's like standard AP.
That's the way to play.
Yeah, it's like standard strategy now. So
I think one thing we need to get fixed in our graphics is, we don't get to see the big blind hand if the big blind folds without calling.
Yep.
That's one change we need to tell our development team to do here.
That was one thing, and I was actually talking about another thing I would like to see, and this is like a subtle thing. I'd actually like to see some of the camera switching have a random delay in it. It'll make it feel more natural, like, because if everyone doesn't know that all of our production here, besides the commentary booth, is all done automatically based on our RFID technology. And so when the camera switches, it's based on action that's happening at the table. And I think it'd be pretty neat, even if it's just anything from like a tenth of a second to, a quarter of a second, just something there's a variable time between the camera switching. It gives it like a natural feel, like someone's running it.
I've seen some more expensive production houses do that. I think Lodge does that. I think the Poker Pro studio at Aria does that as well. I think it should be very easy to incorporate for us. But in the meanwhile, that was a very surprising move there. Under the gun, King Deuce, shove with still about 10 big blinds in your hand. But Sonia is again one of those regulars on the final table here at Firefly, and she probably exactly knows what she's doing there.
Now I'll say what's interesting is King Little is another one of especially King Little suited is another one of those good blocker hands. It's normally a strategy where on deeper stacks that if somebody's opened on the button, you can 3-bet with King Little because it blocks kings, and you're always, at least if an ace comes out, you can draw into the nuts with that. But she took that and ran with it under the gun. Never hate on pulling chips in.
You just mentioned everything else is automated here except for commentary. Have you seen one of those automated commentaries now? If people are playing soccer or football or basketball, there's an AI tool that starts commentating by itself.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't think we should give Manit any more ideas like this. You and I will be without a job.
Oh yeah. Now the AI that I've been playing around with lately is Spotify has a new DJ feature, and its text to speech is brilliant with some of the artists and how their names are actually pronounced. And I'll have some odd musicians from back in the day, and it gets their names right, and it does a pretty good job of figuring out like what you want to listen to.
Right. See over here with the ace in her hand and position, Veena should have probably tried betting, but she did not.
That's one where I like a bet there. One, I think at worst they're going to give her credit for a 9 if she had bet the flop. They know, heck, they might even give her a credit for a queen.
Oh, she's calling. Wow. I thought Sonia would have it easy. Ted is a good player. He's not calling that. He would have folded there.
I will say right now, I think Sonia is worried.
I think Sonia is worried now, and unless an ace hits the river, Sonia is going to.
Yeah, I expect this to go check. Just done. And that's one where something I've been trying to work on, that, and this is back to Veena having a tighter image, that even if you put in a raise there, but just the easiest would have been bet the flop,
Right.
Nobody thinks you're bluffing,
Right.
and in a way, you're not. You actually have the best hand.
Right.
Blinds will
Right.
be raised at the end of
But
Yeah.
this
I always tell
hand.
people it's like a, poker. You can't be scared of the boogeyman.
But I think some new players get very emotional and attached to their aces or face cards, and she's one of those. I've been watching her play. She has an ace. She has a position. She'll keep chasing it to the river.
But that's one also, especially using her image. If she'd have raised the ace on the button, which is we're talking about essentially standard strategies now. Forget the fact that we're playing short stack at the final table. If she had opened that ace on the button, those blinds are going to fold quicker than a broken lawn chair,
Right.
and she would have picked up 8K or 6K without any sort of resistance.
Right. Right.
But that just comes with time.
When you're down to 8 or 10 big blinds in your hand, Gil, do you widen your range on the button if the action folds to you? Would you raise with a little more loosely?
Um, Yeah, and it's one of those where it's like also depending on who's in the blinds. You can maybe even get away with not having to shove. I think it's tricky. Back when I first started learning poker, 10 to 15 bigs was probably your shoving range, and now that raises are 2.1, you can get away. And I say especially if player dependent, but if you kind of have a read on your players in the big blind, you can raise. I would argue 50 to 60% of all of your hands on the button for a min raise. And a lot of these players are either going to go away or give up on it post flop if they completely miss.
Right. Right. No, you're right. You're so right.
Now, I
You know,
think the hardest part there, and this goes for even seasoned players, is if you formulate a plan like that, you have to be ready to go through with it, no matter what the cards are.
absolutely.
And I think that's really difficult.
In the last few weeks, I'll share with you one of my big learnings has been the amount of time professional poker players invest in studying the draw on their table. I'm just amazed at how they will sit down and draw the map and figure out who's to my left, who's got how many big blinds, what's going to be my strategy. They invest hours and hours before start of play, like what we saw with Dan's case in the final table and my own personal experience as well,
Yeah.
playing both the main and Colossus, and I was amazed to see strategies being drawn out like that.
Also, Red looks like Vina had limped in with kings here. She's definitely at least sucked red rum into this one, who's gone all in with king queen.
Oh wow!
Look at her smiling.
Oh wow!
She's gonna have to work on her poker face.
Dead.
That I think the nice thing.
Oh, did she pick up her cards? I thought she was about to fold there.
No, she definitely looked at him. She limped in, left two behind. This obviously would be if red rum hadn't have pushed the action here. This would have been an easy call for Ted.
Right.
Um,
And then hit the ace or spades
Yeah.
on the flop and take it down. But now,
So fingers crossed. I think
wow.
I think this is going to work out for Vina. Not that she strategized it this way, but
I think it's appropriate I let the viewers and listeners know why we're sounding a little biased. This is Manish. Veena is my mom, and the dealer over there is dealing to his grandmother.
yeah. So let's see how much he wants for Christmas from her.
9-10 jack or 3 diamonds or play it safe.
All right, that's about
All
as safe as it
this
gets.
yeah, I don't think if you can.
Well, that's the only card you don't want to see. Woo! All right,
Yeah, she's got there. but
nice hand.
She's doubled up.
She has the house advantage now.
That
I hear David saying she has the house advantage there.
yeah. She has the RFID reading glasses like the rest of the family.
Yeah. I don't know if Ash is watching, but he was texting me a little bit ago, and I said, "Hey, Veena made it to the final table." He's like, "What's up with one of the Madans always
Yeah.
being on the final table?"
Yeah, but you're not.
But
in every house.
nice pickup.
Mess with the
You know, it's nice to have a big hand, and with her chip stack, it was going to be hard to get it heads up, which is what you always want to do with the big pair. And when someone does the dirty work for you, it's always nice. I actually don't hate red rum shove there. He's got a hand that can flop really well. And now it looks like Monet's dealing boring cards.
She knew she made a mistake. She's like, oh,
I think Redrum was using his stack advantage to put pressure, seeing Ted limp in and isolate Vina or have her fold, knowing that
Yeah.
she's a mid player there.
Yeah, that I think it's one of those where I think she's going to have a weak ace and some probably weaker suited cards. So his hand plays well against almost anything she was limping in with. I think she was trapping and didn't even know it.
Wow, there we see. Oh my God,
Jack.
we see a jack there, and then we flop. Oh, look at that!
There we go, straight.
Let's open it. That was a 7-card straight, I guess.
Nice hand, David. I'll give a shout out to David. He actually dealt for us. This is the first time I've, seen him play. He actually dealt for us, played very well. The players at this table were very patient. From what I know, he's hearing impaired, which was
I think so. That's what I observed. I haven't talked to
I
him.
saw when Monet was giving his final table instructions that his wife was signing to him. So always cool to have people coming out that, when I asked for dealers earlier today, he stepped right up without hesitation. From what I saw, he did a really good job. Seems probably a pretty good poker player because he also had a bunch of chips over there.
We had a lot more, several other seniors playing in the game today, and I was enjoying it because I see a lot of such people coming back and telling Manet, you guys are doing an amazing job. We get a chance to get out and
Yeah.
socialize here. So while for us this may be business or this is more research and development for us, but people find an outlet to step out and socialize.
And I know the group you're talking about. The one thing that's fun with that is I feel like their group has grown each week. The first Saturday they came out like 3 Saturdays ago, it was either 2 or 3 of them, and then the next week there was 6 because APC was doing the bring a friend, and they all wanted to know how they were getting their 4,000 extra chips, and and then
No, I
today
think
there
it's
was
impressive. I think when we were initially talking to Rachel, Erin, and Spry about starting an APC location here on the 400 corridor, there isn't another location here, and we could attract a lot of players from other leagues, and I see that happening now. I think the networking effect has started. Every game, every successive game we set up over here, I'm seeing 2-3 new faces.
Yeah, it was one of those where I was running the game for Rachel today because the Atlanta Poker Club Grand is going today, and we were really worried. Not worried, but we thought there was going to be a smaller turnout. But like you were saying, that we appear to be reaching out to even just 2 or 3, 4 new people each time we play. And on a day where I would have been happy just to have the 27 in the room, that we actually ran 5 tables, 39 players on a day where I'd have been happy with getting to maybe 30. So
I think the timing also worked out well, right? As soon as the flight A of Grand got over at about 3:30, and this game was starting at 4, and the drive time is exactly 25 minutes from the American Legion to here. I think a lot of players got out of there and came in here.
All right, so
and there the limp is going to get punished. She limps in with ace-5 in bad position under the gun, and Mike, who's again a regular and a strong player, has ace-jack, puts pressure, and she rightly folds.
And it's one of those where I'm trying to not be result oriented. That if she is going to play passive, she's making good folds here. And that, of course, you either want her to play aggressive or just fold those cards if she's not going to play aggressively. But it is another one, like you're saying, you have players, especially newer players, they can get married to any ace. So I'm actually really proud of her to see her lay down the ace rag if she is going to limp in.
Right. And when players go home and watch the stream, or other players who are watching the stream right now, exactly know how to get folds out of her.
Yeah.
Any 3-bet gets a fold from her. So she's got to be observant of that as well. There's Ted Akalaki, open up with the lucky 7s.
But I'm going to assume Ted came in for a raise. Yeah, that's a...
Oh, he raised to 25.
Discipline lay down there, King 10. I think that's a hand that's sneaky. You want it to be playable, but I think Ted and Mike may have snuck into the chip lead, but I think Ted and Red Rum are still the chip leaders. No reason that if the chip leader under the gun is raised to get in there with King 10 suited, 9-3.
If I were to think of hands in my short poker playing history of 4 or 5 years, I think King 10 and maybe King Jack probably rate the number one and number two hands on which I've lost the most money.
So it used to be a running joke um, for years in APC that King 10 was called the APC hand because it seemed to be the one that people would call big raises with and either win tournaments or somehow wonder why they're sitting on the rail. And you're like, well, if you're not the first player, you don't necessarily want to be putting all your money in with King 10. But it
Absolutely.
was the hand, especially King 10 suited. Psh,
Yeah, I've tried to discipline myself a lot. If I'm in position, if I'm on the button and I have King 10, definitely suited is when I open. Otherwise, get rid of those
yeah,
two.
and I do agree with you. I think also King Jack is another one of those hands where it feels really, really high up in what should be value hands because it feels almost like it's one step down below Ace King, and so King.
There's another example. King Queen, she just completes, does not raise, and oh my God, Ted did not put pressure either. He had an ace, and he did
Yeah,
not re-raise his big blind, and she's hit the king now.
yeah. See, these are one of those tricky ones because if it folds you King Queen suited short stack, and Ted's going to give you a lot of credit. Now, of course, I'm pretty sure Ted was going to call there, but no, but also meant you win more chips that people
Ted,
have to.
Ted is sitting right next to her. Probably can't see a lot of her expressions, but that big smile on her face kind of gave
Yeah.
it away as well.
That I'll say that was also an interesting one in that. Excuse me. That I think the only reason Ted didn't raise back is he was fairly certain she's going to call. I don't expect her to fold there.
Yeah.
Jack 7 in the muck. But
I think the dealer Manit is sharing his experiences there. He did a fantastic job at WSOP this summers. He got in the cash in one of those $400 tournaments, and then he played one of the satellites, and through the satellite made it into the main by
yeah.
winning the satellite.
Now, was that satellite one where X number of people got a seat, or was it winner take all, or how'd
No,
that work?
X number of people. So they have a very interesting setup. $500 or something dollars.
Well, that's a great value.
5% people, 5% of the field. So
Right.
they typically get 400 or 500 people there.
Sure.
And about the one I was looking at, I think 27 people made it to the main. Then there is a $1,100 where 10% of the field makes it.
Yeah.
And then there is a 2,000 something, 2,100 something where 20% people make it to the main. He played the $2,100
Yeah.
satellite.
But I don't say especially for $500 that if players are looking to experience the WSOP, but also go out and find some value, and if we can't all be winemen and pull in 12.1, but if you're looking for more experience on the cheaper side, playing a $500 satellite for a chance to get into the main event, whether you make it or not, is a great value for even just from an experience standpoint.
Yeah, in fact, when we were traveling back to Vegas for the final table to be Dan's rail, Manat and I were discussing, what are we doing next summers? Are we going to be at the WSOP again? And he was like, I think I like this. I don't think I want to spend $10,000. I'm probably going to come here, play one or two satellites, and try to get into the main through a satellite.
Well, one thing that's come up, and obviously you don't have to give like business secrets or strategy away, but what is your guys' thoughts on is there any value in a booth or even following the circuit around, or you guys find just enough value in contacts you get from card rooms, since really like at this moment maybe card rooms are your target audience?
Our entire target audience for our Generation 1 platform is card rooms, and there are close to about 600 card rooms in North America. We have 18 of our tables already in there in 18 places, and we right now have a sales team that calls and builds a pipeline in the rest of the card rooms. Definitely, we get a lot of visibility being at WSOP this year. You saw Dan Weinman and Josh Payne both wearing our patches. And then we had at least a dozen other friends and family and other people that RF was sponsoring, wearing the RF colors of the RF logo that got us a lot of visibility. our website saw hits
Yeah,
on
well,
the
so
website
you
like
you showed me
crazy.
behind the scenes where the spike in traffic.
The number of people who came up to Manit or to me to talk about, what's RF all about, okay, and then they go to the website, they see what it is, and then they approach, okay, if they're part of the card room management, they've come back and said, how do we get one of your tables now? And if they're players, then they talk about, okay, how can my local card room get one?
Right.
So the last few weeks have been pretty good for business, but we're definitely putting together plans for going forward. How do we change that and build on all the mileage we got in the recent few weeks?
That's awesome. All right, back to the action.
Mike's got ace queen, low jack position. Luckily, Veena
Good.
and Ted did not see anything. They fold. I think David's going to have a
This
question
gonna
there.
be tough. It's all in the call.
Let's not forget the blinds are already at 8,000, and he's sitting on 29,000. So,
Well, that was one thing I was talking with someone the other day when not this season. Congrats to Virgil who won All Stars this season, but I won All Stars last season, and coincidentally, we're going to talk about Virgil, where this is a situation where, like even you're talking earlier, not becoming emotional with chips or realizing how many big blinds it was that Virgil had shoved into my big blind, and it was like 100,000 chips, and I think the average person is like, oh my gosh, it's 100,000 chips. What I'm going to do? But then I reset, and I was like, I think at the time it was like 4 big blinds, and it was like you can't worry about the fact that it's 100,000 or even that it's, I think at the time it might have been like half my stack.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I was talking to some people today who played the sports line deep stack tournament, and I said I saw on Facebook that blinds went up to 128,000 and 256,000. Like, that is surprising. But if I were to do a reverse math, 83 people, and let's say even if it was a million chips, you probably have 4 or 5 big blinds
Right.
on the entire table when you're playing heads up.
For sure.
There is no poker in that. That's coin flips.
Or that was even like, same situation Thursday when King Arthur and I were heads up that he went all in, and it's like, oh, it's 64,000. We were already at 1632. Those are times where you have to learn the math trumps emotion in poker.
Right.
And you just throw your chips in blind. There's like, even we were talking about like trying to kind of school people, newer people, and becoming better at poker. I had a hand with Manya where it was 4 and 8, and she was all in for 10,000. And I told her after the fact that I was in the small blind that I raised her without looking at my cards because she was mathematically supposed to call without looking at her cards. It's kind of just what was supposed to happen at that point.
Right. I think I mentioned to you, and we were talking to Rachel the other day, right? How do you move your thinking from chip EV to ICM? And if you look at the APC format, I think after the first 2 blind levels, you're always below 100 big blinds on
Right.
an average. You have to play ICM. So you're counting in your mind based on big blinds and not the face value of the chips that you have. So,
For sure.
So that ace 5 call all in 29,000 chips from David, I think was an absolutely perfect thing to do.
Yeah.
Based on what the books say. This hand's developing here.
And
A6 offsuit versus King Jack suited.
And I'll give Mike credit there and give David credit. I actually think Mike's putting in his chips wider than the ace that he had. All right, good flop for ace. Hold your breath, hold your breath, hold your breath. All right, good run out.
4 life cards, no one hit the board. Ace 6 will hold.
And I will say this: even if Veena had raised there, I think Sonia was going to go with King Jack suited.
All right, with 48,000, Venus climbed up to beat the bronze bar on the screen.
Yeah,
she's the third highest chip now.
Third highest. So she is showing from the other side of things that just getting lucky each time you put your chips in the middle can work. It's interesting. This has happened a couple of times, commenting on hands where I think if she'd have been, trying to not be result oriented, but being result oriented, a couple of times where I think she should have been more aggressive, might have been out of the tournament. So sometimes
some of the basics, things that you and I know, for example, right? Six-handed, you have an ace, you have a very high probability. You're the only one who has an ace. You're putting your chips in the middle, and she in the low jack position with ace six just limped,
right.
right? I mean, with 40% of her chips, that wasn't the right move. But again, as you said, she got lucky, and
It worked.
and it worked.
But it's one of those where it's like, old school, new school poker. Those are situations where you always want to be. They always say you want to have multiple ways of winning chips, and essentially, so far that all of her double ups have to come from ending up with the best hand. Where there was a couple of times she probably could have actually won. Oh, that's a pretty good flop for
Wow.
3-5.
Oh, look at that. 5-3 versus 10-6. And looks like 10-6 was at risk, and 5-3 retains it.
Mike, what are you doing? Oh, he's in the big blind. I was like, Mike, what are you doing? I thought he had raised from like under the gun. Like he'd just gone crazy. John looks super bored.
I'm wondering if this is his first time on the final table here.
I don't know. He's played a couple of times, but I do think this is the first time he's made final table. That we'll give a shout out to Blake came and played today, who he'd been running a rough shot over APC here lately. I think he was I think he unofficially made final table. That he went out ninth right before we got to final table. So we'll give him credit for another final table.
Yeah, he's been amazing. Yeah, he's definitely a good player. He's a great personality as well. I love interacting with him. Always smiling.
Well, I was literally about to say that. I think he's got a big old smile.
He drives all the way from Smyrna. I love that, how committed some people are to poker, and I also feel happy and excited that people love this location so much.
Oh yeah, and now that we'll give a shout out where shout outs are due. Now that the AC appears to be fixed, things are feeling really good in here. All right, this is an interesting hand. I think.
Okay, someone need to try and steal it, but they are trying. And Mike is worried.
I don't think Mike expects to win this hand, but he's going to take it down. I think he's a little surprised.
Veena, with her position, did not try to steal the pot and loses to ducks.
And yeah, that's one where it's like, another thing I see in APC is people. Now she doesn't have a lot of chips, so it's harder to say this, but she could have taken a stab for the minimum there, and it probably works. Mike can be loose, but I don't think he's loose enough to call a Veena bet loose.
Five cards on the board, all above his deuces. Right. There's no way he's calling that.
And and I'll say this from the outside looking in, I'll believe her every time.
Yeah.
Until I start seeing her bluff, that
Yeah, the day she incorporates a bluff in her armory, she's going to become dangerous.
But that's the same thing like playing with Selena when Selena is like, I never bluff. Like, doesn't make sense, but she'll turn over 2 pair. You're like, oh, I guess you're not bluffing. Then, all right, looks like Mike and Ted are separating themselves. Sometimes these APC blind levels, I was going to say, hadn't really seen Red Rum do anything wrong. I mean, the King Queen was, I can't even call that wrong. I think he was shoving at the right time, but it's one of those where you can definitely blink at these blind levels and you don't have any chips left.
We had our team analyze Hendon Mob and look for people in Georgia. Obviously there's Gary Katz, Dan Weinman, and Josh Arya sitting on the top 3 positions.
Right.
And then we started kind of mapping people onto people who play APC. And Ted, I think, was amongst the top 2 or 3 people who play APC on Hendon Mob. I think he's got close to $100,000 on Hendon Mob.
I could believe that. Yeah, after you'd actually mentioned that the other day, and I was trying to glance through. I found some people in the mid-thousands, but it's one of those where it's like it's interesting from APC standpoint, like how many people put in. If if you run with the thinking that you're going to cash in like 20% of the tournaments you play, even big name poker players, like it's like 15 to 20% cashes. That I don't know
Yeah.
if the
I,
average.
I don't know if you paid attention. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Yeah.
you off, but you'd miss this here. Ted, because of Vena's reputation, I think just folds his small blind because she had just limp called from the button
Right.
16,000.
All right.
I think she's calling that.
I was about to say, I think he just hoped he got lucky that the four was the only thing that hit. But I don't. And I was talking with Rachel. And this is like a philosophical thing where, I think a lot of us can have, even the better poker players can have, not imposter syndrome, but I think a lot of APCers don't put in enough volume to show up in those lists. I think there's a good number of people that could if they had the time or the money to put in the volume. But we had the discussion, and I had my theory at first was that players had, a lot of players in the, let's say, top 500 all had just one or two big cashes, but it did seem like a lot of them, do circuit events or whatever, just had nice steady, $400-500 cashes with some $2,000 or $3,000 cashes sprinkled in. So I think a lot of it is a volume thing.
That's true. That's true. APC is just this amazing place that helps you learn foundational poker and kind of propels you into the next level. Obviously, if you turn professional, you're not playing APC a lot more after
Right.
that. But we love APC, and most of our patrons love APC. With 60 or close to 60 games a week all across
Yeah.
the city here, it's very easy to find a good game if you have an evening to kill.
That I know one strategy you've talked about is if you're trying to use APC to get better, but understanding that it is a turbo format, that you said you concentrate on basically the first two or three, maybe four levels, and then because that allows you to play what I would consider medium stakes early mid game poker tournaments, and then after that you understand that it's the luck of the cards that's really dictating whether you win or lose. So I think that's a really solid thought. That's a really solid thought mentality, that if you are coming out to get better and maybe looking at taking the next step, concentrate on the first two or three levels as the ones where you're going to try to implement things, and you're not worried about whether you win or lose. It's getting yourself comfortable doing things, making plays.
If you look at the main event, for example, at WSOP, very clearly it's broken into 5 levels, right? When you have over 200 bigs, when you have 100 bigs, then when you're in the 50 plus big region, and then the lowest is when you're at 10 bigs, right? You're playing shove or fold. If you look at that kind of a game and that structure, APC offers you level 2 for the first two blind levels, where you could have over 100 big blinds,
Right.
right? You start at 2550, you have a 7,000 chip starting stack, that's 140 big blinds.
Yeah.
At the next level, it's 100 and you're less than 100 big blinds.
But I think it's a smart, just to give other people inspiration. It's a smart mental place to be in with what you're trying to get out of APC.
Absolutely. Oh, APC is awesome, but always remember, this is like the mid-level of a tournament that
Right.
you're learning here,
Yeah.
right? And mid-level tournament in typical multi-day tournament is when you're down to 50% of the field, right?
Sure.
If it's a 3-day tournament, in day one you go down to 50% of the field, next day you go down to 25% of the field, and then third day you finish it off. Queen 10 versus King 5, both have clubs.
I like this bet by Mike with a gut shot. He definitely has more equity than Ted. I don't know if Ted can find a call here. But
I mean, Ted has a gut shot on the lower side, or double gutter, if you may call it. No, he does not. Sorry.
Well, that's why I think I really like. Obviously, Mike can't see Ted's cards, but I do like this. That if check to him that the gut shot, and there didn't appear to be any sort of either playing showing real interest, and so if Mike's in the big blind there, he can definitely sell the fact that he had an 8 or something. So I like that using the power of what had kind of happened pre-flop to take that one down. Once you did have the gut shot, it's always nice to have a backup plan. just let out a big smile, and she hadn't even looked at her cards yet. All right. All right. Let's see. 8-16. I think this is just a shove. You're at the point where, no matter what, I never want somebody to feel like they're easy to get lucky on me.
You're going to get 1.5 big blinds. You got to be happy with that at this stage. You don't have chips where you raise 2.5 or 3 big blinds, and then if you get called, then you're at the deck's mercy.
All right, nice pickup. Now I was trying to see what Venus sitting on. She's got 2 bigs.
Yeah, 2.5 bigs there.
Almost 3 bigs. Yeah. This is where now.
John has 2 bigs and she's.
Some of this let's say it was going to be tough, but I'd like to see her shoving almost any 2 cards if it's folded to her. Just for a pickup, but it's hard. Now, this is one where if you did look at it, this is a solid laydown. But I'm saying, from a psychological standpoint, if she can get into, even with 3 bigs shoving any 2 cards, Ted's probably not calling unless something is like high king suited and up that, I think he's letting go of any like baby queens, baby jacks.
That's my weak spot, just to let you know and let our audience also know. I've probably rarely folded a small blind in my life.
Yeah.
My stack may be as low as it can be, but I somehow just...
Well, that was something I had learned...
Failed to complete.
I had learned years ago, especially at these higher levels, that, they say small blind...
Earlier, wow, Mike with the chips lead folds is too suited. Okay, probably good for him. And right. Once again, she's limping at 16K.
Now, this may sound funny, but I would like to see that if someone does shove here, I think she needs to know that she's essentially limping with an ace as a trap here. As much as ace-6 doesn't feel like a trap.
And I think that's the reason Ted is not putting pressure either. Yeah. He did not raise because he knows if he raises, he's definitely getting called there.
Let's see, who did this get? Did this get anybody? So this didn't get anybody. This is where I would have loved to see a shove out of her.
Someone should have pushed there. Yeah, and if she's in position, she had to push on.
So
people have hit the 6
now.
now.
And so shove by John. All right, this is where I hope she musters this up. I hope she musters up a call here. Muster up a call. Note there, nice.
There we see the bias from Gil cheering for Veena to win. That's the underdog there.
Yeah. So some of that even the cheers there for, and this is where I tried to look at some of the shortcomings I had in my game is you can't be worried about boogeymen.
Right.
That if no one showed any interest before that point, it's funny, but you're either going to win because you have the 6 and an ace, or you're going to lose because somebody hit a 10. That you just can't worry about boogeymen in the closet.
Right.
So that's a great call.
I agree. It's making her so happy, and they're teasing her. Yeah. You're at number 3 now, just like that.
But no, it's like that's one where I know a lot of people will literally find a skeleton or a boogeyman in the closet and be like, if you hit the 6, well, what were you playing for? So yeah, I'm super proud of that call.
Hey, to your point, that's the other thing I've seen. When people, people are calling with like a queen jack or queen 10, and they hit the queen, but there's another ace, and then they get worried about either opening or calling. Then why did you play that hand?
Or the other one I see people, depending on bet sizes, especially if you're in shorter stack situations, that people will limp in with we'll say 6-4 of diamonds, and then diamonds come, but they find a fold when someone bets pot or goes all in. It's like, well, if you're formulating a strategy, what were you? Once you have the flush draw, that's kind of the best thing you could have been hoping for.
Exactly.
That it's as fearful or as it can be. Yeah, sometimes you just stick your chips in if that's what part of your plan was.
Third place.
Say like 10-7. I think this is a great candidate for a shove that Ted's not calling except for the high end. Let's see now. Once again, not being result oriented, but also, you make this argument that 10-7 is right in the middle of the deck. That if you do get called, a lot of the flops are going to flop right around your 10 and your 7.
Right. It's being nice to her.
I'd say super nice because if she checks again, I think Ted should bet here. Especially when Ted's got a gut shot.
Ted waited too long to steal that pot.
And then
he's not going to get a fold from her now.
60.
That I will say, I think both players missed a couple of bets there, but never wrong to be dragging chips. Good thing a 7 didn't hit.
Ted wouldn't have done that to anyone else. I think it's just as a mark of respect, he did not put pressure on her either on the flop or the turn.
Yeah, I do agree. I think any other player, he puts in a bet there.
16.
That and that's back to what we were talking about, that learning that especially in APC, even in APC, that you don't have to necessarily shove to put pressure on players. That even just small min bets, or I was telling somebody the other day, throw in an odd chip that if they're at 8-16, bet 17. People think you put a lot of thought into the bet.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that 2.1, 2.2 thing just like scares people out here. And once again, this is what she needs to learn and improve. Not just limping in on the button. A shove was in order. Mike's got top pair and gut shot. He's sitting easy there. This is interesting. Mike's getting a call from her now. With 2 overcards only.
Yeah, this is a tricky spot because even if she shoves, Mike's never folding here.
Yeah, Mike's got the chip stack to stay in. And she just kept 12,000 behind.
35. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mike's not. I mean, granted, he has top pair. He's definitely not going to play as passively as Ted did. Based on the amount of chips out there, I actually don't hate it if she calls. That if you put Mike on a 10, she's calling 12. She's calling 12.
That's a 200,000 pot there.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have hated that if she calling 12 to win 200 with 2 overs.
No, I think it was a 74,000 pot.
Yeah,
looked like 200 there.
So maybe the only thing was I think he went all in. So,
maybe that.
But even there, 12 to, I think if he went all in, he basically doubled the pot. But 12, and let's say you're going to win 100 because you're matching only the 12. I don't mind a call there, 2 overs,
right.
12 to win 100.
Right.
I think that's one of those like mathematical things that are sometimes hard for people to learn. It's just that there's so much money out there now. You're never that far behind where 2 to come and she has 6 cards. She had 12% to win, assuming he didn't have a straight. But it's like you're basically calling 10% with more than 10% equity in the pot.
If you add that to your process, and then you look at your entire poker life, over 100 times doing that or over 1,000 times doing that thing is going to be
Yeah,
profitable.
because
It's always going to be positive EV.
now obviously with deeper stacks, but I think one mistake a lot of APCers make is they always want to be putting their they always want to be ahead, and sometimes you get to the point where ahead doesn't matter. It's an it's an investment strategy per se, and that if
Oh.
Oh my god.
Um,
Dude, winners.
Okay, I think Veena got eliminated now on
so,
third position.
but this is where we'll talk about what APC is all about. She had a big smile on her face. I think she always has a great time when she comes out.
You're about to say something.
ugly.
That it's kind of the mantra for what APC is all about is that come out, have a good time. We'll even give a shout out to Firefly Day. They helped someone that had a little too much to drink, got him a ride home. So it's looking out for each other.
I think APC does a great job with helping people around the city, find these social outing opportunities.
Yeah.
And I very briefly talked to Spry about it. How can we introduce maybe a deep stack tournament? Maybe one on Sundays in one or two or three locations.
I think that would be nice. That I think some of that you do have to find the TD to run it because it's a little more time commitment. But based on my play style, I'll be selfish for a second. I would love to see something like that.
Yeah, that is going to be real WSOP imitation or real WSOP level practice. All right, we got the two big stacks fighting it out now. Mike has 245,000 in chips. Ted probably has half of that, and with blinds at 16 and 32. Oh, Ted has about 70,000.
32.
So Ted has a little over two big blinds.
It is 69 total. 69. Yep.
So I just got an update from Rachel. Like we mentioned earlier, the Grand is running today. Looks like they're going to have approximately 7 tables tomorrow. 41 players made it from Flight A. Shout out to Manish and that 41 players. And then she said right now there's 3 tables left for Flight B with about 5 minutes left to bag. So I expect probably those 27 players to make it.
Nice.
27-ish players.
27 and 41. That's about 68 players. In the meanwhile, Ted got a double up there with his domination with the jacket over 10-8, and he's up to 4 big blinds now. Yeah, I got to start thinking about that. When I walk in tomorrow, I have about 8-9 big blinds in the morning when blinds start at 1,500, 3,000 at the Grand when we resume for day 2. And again, my table draw, I'll have to get lucky, and then I'll have to get lucky on where the button starts. If I
Right.
have position and I see the whole orbit before I'm forced to shove my 8 or 9 big blinds. I'm just hoping I don't walk into the blinds and lose 5 big blinds at the start of the day,
Right.
and I'm left with just 4 big blinds later on. That's not going to help my game at all.
But yeah, that was one thing we were talking about. That once the big blind ante is in effect, yeah, you lose essentially 5 big blinds every orbit if you don't do anything.
Yeah. In fact, that's what I was calculating with a bunch of friends at the second break. I'm like, okay, how much do we need to run through the next hour if I have to bag? And we kind of did a calculation, and it seemed like we needed 9,500 chips to just put in the blinds and not play a hand
Right.
and make day 2. And I think I was sitting on about 27 or 28,000 chips at that time. Like, okay, if my only goal is to make day 2, I'm just going to put in my blinds and not look at my cards, and I'll make day 2. if I had to win a bet from someone,
For sure.
that would be the calculation.
Yeah.
But I got lucky. The deck was supporting me, and I hit some good hands. At one time I had close to about 39,000 chips, and then went down to 35, and then I played 2 orbits without playing a hand and lost 10,000 in those 2 orbits. So
For sure.
I bagged about 25,000 at the end of the day.
That you really keep your fingers crossed for tomorrow that the button, or at least slightly behind the button, that you're not gonna have the. Because what blind level are you guys coming back to tomorrow?
It's going to be 3,000 and 3,000. 3,000 big blind and 3,000 ante, and 1,500 small blind.
Yes.
So that's a 7,500 blind per orbit.
That that'll put a dent in 28K.
Oh yeah, if I have to leave it to luck, I can sit there and play 3 orbits and hope I keep hitting aces. But that's not going to be the way to build a stack. All right, we see these guys going all in. Ted is ahead again, this time with ace 5 versus Mike's king 8. Oh wow, he was down to 69,000 chips.
And if the pot is accurate, you're going to look at a 280K pot. Wins one. Well, it says wins 144.
Yeah, he won 144, which means he had put in 144, and the total pot was 288.
Yeah.
One big blind, 16.
Yeah, because now it says he's at 314K. That maybe that took, based on the graphics, that took Mike Z out. I thought Mike Z was our chip leader at the time, but we'll default to the graphics. Oh, that appears to be a win. We'll call it a win if you tap the rail and shake Vina's hand.
Ted's the only one who's comfortable banging the rail here. Everyone else thinks the tables are sensitive, but he does an amazing job building these tables and knows the strength inside the rail.
Earlier we were also talking about how Ted, one feature he builds into some tables is the USB ports on the edges, and I kind of joked around with him and says, I'd love to see the mag.
Oh, the MagSafe charger now?
Yeah, MagSafe charger in the rail.
We've talked about it. Manat and I have talked about it, putting the charger inside the rail and letting people charge. But I think, one feedback we got from most of the card rooms was the danger of those wires getting entangled and people tripping.
For sure.
So looks like Ted had him covered, and there's one more win for Ted there, and he continues to increase his lead.
No, it's funny. Ted showed up, and I know he was talking over something with Monet today, and I said something. I was afraid I wasn't going to have any dealers. He's like, "Well, I'll just deal for you," and then all of a sudden I heard him yell out. He goes, "Well, I just doubled up, so I may as well get a max chip." And looks like it worked out for him.
Here is the real story. Ted had no plans to play today. I met him at the Grand. There's a meeting that was due between me, Ted, and Manat, and I asked him, "Can we meet today?" He says, "Okay, we'll meet now." And then he looks at my stack, and I had a huge stack. He had a very small stack. He got busted at the Grand, and he said, "I'm going to go to Firefly and wait for you there." So He basically came here for a meeting.
Oh yeah,
and ended up playing for 4.5 hours.
He told me, he's like, "Well, I'll play and deal for you just because you need somebody." He's like, "But I'll be here for about an hour."
Let me go find Ted, if I can find Ted, and do a quick short interview with him at the end of the game.
But yeah, so it's all right. Man of the hour, who was supposed to only be here for an hour. Congratulations.
Thank you. This is what I get for helping, right?
Yeah, because I was telling him first, you had just said to me that, you're like, I'm gonna be here for about an hour. I'll help you deal, because we were definitely short on dealers at the beginning, and I think you had doubled up or hit a gut shot or a straight draw or something, and then you were like, all right, well, here's a max out chip. Let's do this. And
at 10 jack, I was open ended, and 2 players were calling my raises, and I was just betting. And then I checked, and they bet, and then I think Manish walked up to me. I said, "Oh, there's my ride," and boom, I hit the river, of course, and tripled up. So from then it was kind of game on. I still tried to give my chips away a couple times, ran nines and aces, and hit a straight, and I was behind another straight, but we ended up chopping it. And then I called Sonia, and I moved to that table, and we were down to 2 tables. she raised in the big blind to my small blind. I think we were at 612 then. I'm not sure, but she made it 3,000. I had 8,500, so I call. I'm not folding my blind.
Right.
I'm trying to go home, and of course I had 5-8, and the flop came out 5-8, and she had pocket nines, and I checked. She bet enough to get me all in, and I think she bet 5,000. I had 5,500. I went all in and held up, and from then on, it was all right. I think I'm going to change aspects here and try to win this thing. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, besides the short time where Mike Z had the chip lead, I think you pretty much went wire to wire on this one. It
was a couple roller coasters, but for moments. But yeah. I mean, I was definitely loose aggressive and definitely catching some hands and definitely having a higher frequency of my good hands hold up.
Yeah.
Even at the final table.
So it's an APC strategy that, when you're this short, you just got to have big hands hold up.
Yeah.
Hell, not even big hands, just the best hands at the time.
Yeah, the blinds jump definitely. When you're short-handed, they're also coming around a lot more frequent. So you definitely can't sit there. And my strategy when we got 4-handed, 3-handed was to keep grandma in.
Yeah.
She was a good buffer. And she was waking up with some hands. And
yeah, there were a couple there where it was like, and it's kind of fun that you mentioned that because we thought you could have taken down the one where it was like 7-3 versus 3-4 or 10-7 versus 7-3, and you could probably take it down with a bet. But like you said, sometimes there's a nicety to, if you see a player as a buffer, that you can keep them in, but kind of keep them in that desperate range.
Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, but I mean, it's also a buffer to where until my chip stack, which I was in the chip lead, but then I think Mike
got a good run of cards.
Yeah, he got up a little bit above me, but we were about one or two big blinds apart from each other, so it was just a matter of who was going to take it down. And I think I got him on the one hand, which kind of set it. Was when I had 4-5 and he didn't raise his button. Like he probably should have, but I don't know what his hand was. I haven't watched yet, but the flop was queen deuce 3, so of course I flop open in and I'm going nowhere.
Sure.
Heads up with. So I just pushed and he folded, and that kind of gave me the buffer, and woke up with an ace the next hand, and that's what held it. But
heck yeah.
He was probably a little frustrated me going all in at that point. But
no, I mean that's one thing Manish and I were talking about, that people, you went all in, that you guys are both sitting there on like 6 or 7 bigs. If you got an ace, I'm putting all my chips in.
Yeah. I mean, there were a couple of hands I folded in ace, or good decent hands when you're short-handed table, but fortunately one of them grandma had pocket kings, so
that was the one where she had limped in. I think she had I think it was like 4 and 8, and she limped in, and she's got 2 left, and that was the one where Red Rum isolated with his king queen suited.
Yeah, he did. He got me off my ace, but I think I had an ace that hand.
Yeah, it was like ace 7 suited.
Yeah, ace 7 spades, and it is what it is, and she held up, and that was good.
Yeah.
I said sometimes you just let the game play out around you, and then you just try to find your way to the top, and I was fortunate. Of course, it happens on a day when I really didn't plan on it. Had dinner planned with my wife and her daughter, and she's saving a plate. So
that reminds me. I'll pay for that dinner.
There you go. No, she cooked it. So it's like
that. I almost forgot to give Ted his prize for winning today. I'm glad you brought that up. I'd have got home and been like, Rachel been like, "What's this $100 in your pocket?"
Yeah, well, I appreciate it.
Be like, I think that's Ted's prize money.
It was fun. Now I guess I'm kind of locked into trying to sneak back here on some Saturdays, but
that's the way it is for me. I think I went up to the Turtle on the first Sunday, and then I won, and then I got second the next week, and I'm like, I really didn't want to play Turtle on Sundays.
I credit this win to the tournament director, by the way.
Heck yeah. I'll give Ted credit for being a nice guy and stepping in the deal.
Yeah, it worked out. It was sometimes the nice guys do finish last.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, we're going to sign off for the evening. Hope everyone enjoyed.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun with everybody that was out here today.